Don't. It still hurts there. The rancher saved her, but Dodge City waited. The twin suns of Red Mesa hung low in the sky, casting long golden shadows across the dry, rocky plains. Dust swirled in gentle eddies, catching the sunlight like tiny sparks of fire. On this frontier planet, the winds had a voice of their own, sometimes soft, sometimes harsh, and travelers knew to respect them. Eli Caraway leaned against the railing of his small hover stable, brushing down the glossy mane of a hoverbred. Unlike Earth's horses, these creatures glided just above the ground, their hooves emitting a faint hum as they moved. Eli had always loved them. There was a kind of calmness in the way they floated over rocks and sand. It reminded him that no matter how chaotic the world seemed, some things could still be gentle. He squinted toward the horizon, scanning the ridges and canyons. That was when he noticed it, a small, flickering light, barely visible against the bright glare of the suns. At first he thought it might be a glitch in his vision, but then it pulsed again, steady and weak, like a faint heartbeat. Curiosity tugged at him. Eli mounted his largest hover horse, a broad chestnut creature named Jasper, and adjusted the small satchel of tools and supplies strapped to the saddle. "Let's see who needs help today," he muttered, nudging Jasper forward. The terrain was unforgiving. Jagged rocks jutted up from the sand, and occasional ridges forced Eli to navigate carefully. Every now and then a gust of wind lifted sand into the air, stinging his eyes, but he pressed on. He had lived on this planet all his life, and he knew these lands weren't meant to be conquered. They were meant to be respected. After nearly an hour of careful riding, he reached the source of the light. A small, silver exploration rover lay tipped over near the edge of a canyon. Its sensors flickered, struggling to stay online. And there, tangled in a rope meant for tethering drones, was a young woman, brushing herself off as best she could. Her hair was streaked with dust, and her clothes were torn at the elbows, but her eyes shone with determination. "Are you all right?" Eli called, hopping down from Jasper. The woman looked up, startled. I think so," she said. "I'm Lyra Voss. My rover, it went off course. I didn't expect anyone to be out here." Eli offered her a hand. "You're lucky the storm didn't catch you sooner. The winds here can twist metal like paper." He glanced at the canyon edge. "You were close." Lyra took his hand and climbed up carefully. She hesitated for a moment, then looked at him with a mixture of relief and embarrassment. "Thank you. I don't know what I would have done." Eli nodded, brushing the dust from her jacket. "You would have found a way. But sometimes it's better to have a little help. Let's get you to safer ground." He guided her toward Jasper, helping her onto the hover horse behind him. The animal shifted slightly under the extra weight but remained steady, like it had been built for moments exactly like this. Eli tightened the straps and mounted behind her. The ride back would be tricky. The canyon winds could be unpredictable. But Jasper moved with a grace that made the journey smooth. As they traveled, Lyra glanced at the horizon. "Is it always like this? So empty?" she asked softly. Eli smiled faintly. "Not empty, just quiet. And quiet has its own life here. You just have to listen. Most people don't, though. They think empty means nothing's happening." Lyra's eyes followed a swirling dust cloud in the distance. I like quiet sometimes, but I don't usually get it. Dodge City is loud. Always lights, drones, messages, never a moment to just... Ellie nodded, understanding more than he could explain. He knew the pull of the frontier, the feeling that the world was both immense and intimate at the same time. "That's why I stayed out here. You get a sense of the land, and maybe even yourself." For a while they rode in silence. The hover horse hummed softly beneath them, carrying them across ridges and through narrow valleys. The light of the suns shifted, painting the sand in hues of orange and pink. Ira relaxed slightly, letting the ride ease her nerves. But the peace didn't last long. A sudden gust of wind picked up from the canyon, faster and stronger than before. It twisted around them, lifting sand into small whirlwinds. Lyra tightened her grip on Eli. "What is that?" she asked, voice tense. "Red Mesa winds," Eli said, though even he felt the tension in his chest. "They can come out of nowhere." "Hold on." Jasper adjusted his balance automatically, leaning into the wind. Eli used a hand to shield Lyra's face from the grit. The path narrowed and a ridge loomed ahead. One wrong move and they could slide down into a jagged ravine. But Eli trusted Jasper, and Jasper trusted him. They reached the ridge, and the wind began to die down as suddenly as it had come. Lyra exhaled sharply. "I didn't realize. I'd never seen anything like this before." Eli laughed lightly, a warm sound in the cooling air. It's a part of the frontier. You get used to it, or you learn to respect it. Either way, you survive. Once the worst of the wind passed, Eli led Lyra to a small cavern carved into the rocks, a place he often used as shelter during storms. Inside, the air was cool and calm. He lit a small, solar-powered lantern, and the soft glow made the rough walls shimmer. Lyra sank to a ledge, brushing the dust from her pants. I can't believe you found me. No one else would have known I was out here. You gave off a faint signal. I've learned to follow them. Sometimes it's all a matter of paying attention.
He handed her a water flask.
Drink. You'll need it. As she sipped, Lyra's gaze wandered to a small table in the cavern, carved from a single stone. It was covered with maps and tools. Do you map this land? She asked. Partly, Eli said. Mostly I just know it. The maps are for others, travelers, settlers, anyone who wants to find their way safely. It's safer if you know the ground before you ride it. Lyra nodded. I wish Dodge City had someone like you. People there, they just follow the drones and the lights. They don't see the land itself. Eli studied her carefully. There was something different about her, beyond the obvious intelligence. A spark of curiosity that didn't rely on machines. Maybe you're seeing it for the first time and that's why it matters so much. Maybe. Or maybe I just got lucky. You were the luck. Ellie felt a warmth spread through his chest. It wasn't often someone thanked him like that. Usually it was business or work or survival. But this. They spent the evening in the cavern, talking about small things. Ellie's ranch, the hoverbreds, Lyra's work as a tech mapper. She mentioned her mission briefly, careful not to reveal too much. Eli listened, sensing there was more beneath the surface, but he didn't press. Sometimes trust had to grow slowly, like plants in the desert. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep violet and streaks of gold, Lyra leaned back against the wall. I don't know what's ahead, she said softly. Dodge City, it waits. But right now, being here, I feel safe. Eli nodded, looking out toward the distant ridges. You'll get there, and you'll see what's waiting. But tonight, rest. Let the wind and the rocks do their work. They'll carry your worries away, at least for a little while. Eli watched her, thinking of the long ride ahead and the challenges that awaited. Dodge City was far, and their journey would not be easy. But for now, the frontier was quiet, and sometimes that was enough. Outside, the stars began to emerge, tiny specks of silver against the darkening sky. The twin suns had set, but their light lingered, painting the world with a gentle glow. And for the first time in a long while, Eli felt that maybe, just maybe, everything was as it should be. Morning arrived on Red Mesa with a soft glow. The twin suns peeked over the horizon, spilling orange and pink across the rocky plains. Eli Caraway had already saddled Jasper, brushing the hoverbred's mane until it shone in the sunlight. He looked around the small cavern where they had stayed overnight. Lyra Voss was awake too, studying the maps he had spread across a flat rock. You seem to know every ridge and valley out here, she said, pointing at a series of lines and marks. I don't know how you remember all this. Ellie smiled, tightening Jasper's saddle. You remember the land by feeling it, not by reading it. Maps help, but they can't tell you everything. Some things you have to see or touch or even hear. Lyra frowned slightly, tilting her head. Hear the land? Yes, Eli said, climbing onto Jasper. The wind, the dust, the way the rocks echo. You can tell a lot if you pay attention. Lyra shook her head, laughing softly. I think Dodge City has trained me to listen to machines, not wind. Then let's change that. They set off, riding along a narrow path that wound between ridges and cliffs. The plains stretched endlessly, dotted with jagged rock formations and small patches of scrub. Lyra held tightly behind Eli, still adjusting to the way the hoverbred floated above the uneven ground. Jasper's soft hum and steady movements made the ride smoother than she expected, but every now and then a sudden rise or dip caused her heart to leap. The canyon we passed yesterday, Eli said after a while, is tricky. Strong winds, loose sand, you fall once and you'll wish you hadn't. But the path I'm taking now is safer, less dramatic, more steady. Lyra nodded. I like steady. For the next hour, they rode in relative silence. Occasionally, Eli pointed out small landmarks, a rock shaped like a crescent moon, a small cluster of bright blue flowers, that only grew near hidden streams, and a narrow arch of stone carved by centuries of wind. Lyra marveled at each one, noting them in her own small notebook. "This is the kind of thing you can't find in Dodge City," she said quietly. "No machine could notice these details. You have to see them with your own eyes." "Exactly. That's why people like me stick around." Some things are better felt than measured. As they rode further, the terrain began to change. Smooth sand gave way to small hills covered in strange, low-growing plants with silver leaves. Eli slowed Jasper, scanning the horizon. "Watch this," he said, guiding them to the edge of a shallow ravine. Below, a series of glowing orbs floated above the ground. They'd pulsed with soft blue light, moving slowly like jellyfish in water. "What are those?" Lyra whispered. "Frontier lights," Eli said, his voice calm. "They grow naturally. Bioluminescent plants. Some of them can follow you for a short distance if you get too close. People in Dodge City call them spirits of the desert, but they're harmless." Lyra leaned closer, eyes wide. She had studied many strange creatures and phenomena in her work, but she had never seen anything quite like this. "They're beautiful," she said. Eli smiled. "They are, and they remind you that even in the quietest, loneliest places, life finds a way." They continued, navigating around the glowing orbs. The path led them toward a shallow canyon where a small stream glimmered in the sunlight. Lyra dismounted, crouching beside the water to touch it. It was cool, fresh, and surprisingly clean. She laughed quietly, splashing some water onto her face. "I didn't think I'd see water like this out here. It feels alive." Ellie watched her, a small smile playing on his lips. "The frontier is alive. You just have to stop long enough to notice." Their journey took them over rolling hills and through narrow valleys. Occasionally, Eli stopped to examine the ground, pointing out subtle changes in the soil that hinted at hidden streams or soft spots that could swallow hoverbred hooves if they weren't careful. Lyra followed his lead, learning quickly how to read the land. By mid-afternoon, they approached an area Eli had marked on his map as a hidden relic site, a place where old Earth colonists had left behind strange objects and technology. "We're close," he said. "I'll need you to be careful. Some of this stuff isn't dangerous, but it's delicate. And it might be surprising." Lyra's curiosity sparked. "Surprising?" Eli nodded, leading them down a rocky slope to a small clearing. There, half buried in the sand, was a small metallic cube. Its surface shimmered faintly, reflecting the sunlight in strange patterns. "I've never seen one this clear before," Eli muttered. Lyra knelt beside it, brushing away the sand. "It looks old. Like Earth old." She reached out and touched the cube. Instantly, faint holographic lines appeared, tracing star maps and connecting distant points on the frontier. Lyra's eyes widened. This could be important," she whispered. Eli studied it carefully. "Could be a map, or a message, or maybe just an old tool." The colonists left all sorts of things behind. Some make sense, some don't. But the way it's glowing, it's reacting to you. Lyra's fingers traced the glowing lines. "I think it's showing me routes. Secret paths between settlements. Routes that aren't on any of my maps." Ellie nodded slowly. "Exactly what I said. Some things you have to see for yourself. Not every path is marked on a map. Some are hidden, for a reason." They spent a few minutes studying the cube, careful not to damage it. Then, as the suns moved toward evening, Eli suggested they continue. "Dodge City isn't close. We should make some distance before nightfall. You'll need rest, and so will Jasper." They mounted and continued, the terrain gradually changing again. Hills turned to flatter plains, dotted with strange rock formations and low silver shrubs. Lyra rode quietly, her mind still in the cube. "Do you think someone is looking for this?" she asked softly. Eli glanced back at her. "Maybe. Maybe not. Some things the frontier hides, and some things it just waits to reveal. We have to be careful, but not afraid." As evening approached, they spotted smoke rising in the distance. Eli studied it through a small optical device. "Nothing dangerous," he said. "Looks like a small outpost. We can stop there for the night." The outpost was simple. 4 small buildings with solar panels and a hovering water tank. A few settlers waved as they approached. "Evening travelers," one called. "Need a place to stay?" Ellie nodded. "Just for the night. And maybe some fresh water." The settlers welcomed them warmly. Lyra marveled at the blend of frontier and technology. The outpost had basic holographic communication devices, but the people relied on traditional skills to survive. They shared a meal of roasted tubers and fresh water, talking quietly around a small fire that floated just above the ground. Lyra felt a sense of calm she hadn't experienced in Dodge City. No drones buzzing overhead, no bright neon lights blinding her eyes. Just the stars, the wind, and the soft hum of Jasper resting nearby. After dinner, she and Eli stepped outside. The twin suns had set, leaving a deep violet sky dotted with bright stars. "It's beautiful," Lyra said softly. Eli nodded. "The frontier has its own kind of beauty. You just have to take the time to see it." The glowing lights of distant alien flora shimmered in the dark, and the wind whispered through the rocks. Lyra closed her eyes, taking it all in. "You saved me," she said finally. "And now, you're guiding me to Dodge City. I don't know how to thank you." Eli smiled gently. "You don't have to. Just keep noticing the land, keep respecting it." That's thanks enough. They stayed there for a long moment, watching the stars and listening to the quiet hum of the frontier. Lyra knew the journey ahead would not be easy. Dodge City was still far, and her mission remained a secret. But for now, with Eli guiding her and the plains around them alive with quiet energy, she felt a sense of hope. Tomorrow, the journey would continue, and the challenges would grow. But tonight, in the calm of the Red Mesa, they were safe. And sometimes, that was the most important thing of all. Dodge City rose like a jewel in the distance, a city that shimmered with neon lights and humming drones. From afar, it looked like a simple frontier town, but Eli Caraway knew better. The streets were alive with energy, blending Old West architecture with futuristic towers and hovering vehicles. Traders called out their wares, vendors adjusted holographic displays, and drones floated above rooftops, scanning for messages, deliveries, or any sign of trouble. Lyra Voss sat behind Eli on Jasper, taking it all in. "It's overwhelming," she murmured. "So many lights, so many people." Eli guided them carefully down a gently sloping road, keeping to quieter streets. "You'll get used to it," he said. "The city can seem big and confusing, but there's order if you know where to look. The trick is noticing the smaller details." Lyra's eyes scanned the crowds, curious and alert. She noticed a street musician performing on a floating platform, a pair of children chasing a holographic butterfly, and a small market where settlers bartered for rare supplies. For all its noise and technology, there was life here that reminded her of the frontier's quiet energy. They reached a small inn tucked away in a narrow alley. The sign read Starlight Haven, and the warm glow from inside promised comfort after their long ride. Eli led them in, and the innkeeper greeted them with a smile. "New travelers? You've come a long way. Rooms are ready, and the water is fresh." Lyra nodded, relief washing over her. "Thank you. We've had a long day." Once they settled into a small room, Lyra couldn't help herself. She pulled out the cube they had discovered on the plains. Its soft glow filled the corner of the room. "I don't understand it completely," she admitted. "It shows hidden routes, almost like secret paths. But there's more. Something someone wants to keep hidden." Eli leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed. "Secrets in Dodge City aren't uncommon. People here have their own ways of keeping things safe, or secret. That's why I like the plains better. What you see is usually what you get." Lyra's brow furrowed. "I need to find my contact. There's information in this city that's important to my mission, but I don't want to attract attention." Ellie considered her words carefully. "We'll do it slowly. Dodge City is tricky for newcomers. People here notice strangers, and not everyone is friendly. But you don't have to go alone." The next morning, the city felt different. The neon lights flickered as the early sun met the high towers, and the streets slowly filled with workers, traders, and travelers. Eli led Lyra through less traveled alleys, avoiding the busiest streets. Along the way, they noticed subtle signs of surveillance. Tiny drones hovering in corners, faint sensors blinking on walls, and encoded messages appearing briefly on holographic panels. Lyra whispered, "Someone is watching us." Could be. Or could be normal city surveillance. Dodge City has its ways. Let's stay alert. They arrived at a small workshop tucked behind a market. Inside, mechanical parts hung from the walls, and tiny drones buzzed gently, repairing themselves or learning new tasks. A man in a dusty vest looked up from a workbench. "Eli Caraway?" he asked. Eli nodded. "This is Lyra Voss." "She's new in town. We've heard about her. Follow me." He led them down a narrow passage where faint light reflected off polished metal floors. Lyra could feel her heart racing. The air smelled faintly of oil and ozone, and every corner seemed alive with quiet activity. Finally, they reached a private chamber. A large table in the center was covered with maps, devices, and holographic projections. A woman stepped forward. "Lyra Voss," she said softly. "I've been waiting for you. The information you need, it's complicated, and some people in Dodge City don't want it to be found." Lyra's pulse quickened. "Why?" "Because it could change the balance of the city," the woman replied. "There are hidden networks beneath Dodge City, abandoned terraforming stations, and old technology from Earth colonies. If misused, it could give power to the wrong people. If used carefully, it could help countless lives." Lyra glanced at Eli, who gave a small nod. He understood the weight of her mission, even if he didn't know all the details. "Be careful," he said quietly. "The city may seem friendly, but even small mistakes can be noticed." Over the next few hours, Lyra worked with the woman to understand the cube. Eli stayed near the doorway, keeping watch. They traced holographic lines across the city, discovering secret corridors, tunnels, and forgotten stations beneath streets. The cube seemed to respond to Lyra, glowing brighter as she touched key points, almost as if it recognized her presence. Suddenly, a faint flicker appeared on the wall, a small, hovering drone that had been almost invisible. Eli noticed it immediately. "Someone's watching," he said. "It's too subtle for a normal city drone. This is deliberate. Don't worry. We can handle it without confrontation." The trick is to be smarter than them. For the rest of the day, they stayed in the workshop mapping and decoding, careful to avoid detection. Every now and then, they paused to rest. Eli offered Lyra a small piece of bread and water. "You need energy," he said with a faint smile. Lyra laughed softly. "I feel like I've been running for days, but I've never been more alive." Eli studied her. She was brave, curious, and careful, qualities that could get her into trouble if the wrong people noticed. But he also saw determination and intelligence that reminded him why he had stayed on the frontier all these years. People like her made the challenges worth it. As night fell, Dodge City transformed. Neon lights reflected in the polished streets, drones hummed softly above, and distant music floated from open windows. Eli and Lyra returned to Starlight Haven, walking quietly through less-traveled streets. Lyra's mind was racing with the secret she had uncovered, but she felt safe with Eli by her side. "You've been watching over me all day," she said softly. "I don't know how to thank you." Eli smiled, brushing dust from his coat. "You don't have to. Just keep noticing the details. Trust your instincts. And remember, even in the busiest city, the quiet moments matter." They paused on a small balcony overlooking the city. Below, people moved like a river of light and energy. Some smiled, some hurried. Some were lost in their own thoughts. Lyra felt a strange connection, like she could see the city breathing, alive with secrets and stories. "The city is more than I expected," she whispered. "It's alive. And dangerous in ways I didn't anticipate." Eli nodded. "That's why you need caution. But it's also why you need curiosity. You learn more by looking than by hiding." Lyra turned to him, a small smile on her face. "I'm glad you're here. I don't know what I would have done without you." Ellie glanced at the stars beginning to appear above the towers. "You'd have done fine, but it's easier with company. And sometimes company makes all the difference." As they returned to their room, Lyra placed the cube carefully on the table. The soft glow continued, lighting the room with a gentle blue hue. She watched the lines and projections, realizing the journey ahead would not be easy. Secrets, hidden networks, and curious observers. Dodge City had a story that was only beginning to unfold. Eli watched her, thinking of the long journey they had already shared. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing. Together, they could face the challenges ahead without fear. The frontier had taught him that much. And for the first time since leaving Red Mesa, Lyra felt like she wasn't alone in the vast, complicated world. She had found someone she could trust, and for now, that was enough to keep moving forward. The twin suns had set hours ago, leaving Dodge City under a deep violet sky that glimmered with scattered stars. Lyra Voss sat beside the glowing cube in their small room at Starlight Haven, tracing the holographic star maps with her fingers. Each line pulsed faintly, pointing to hidden stations, tunnels, and abandoned terraform equipment beneath the city. Eli Carraway leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her quietly. "You've been at it all day," he said. "Are you sure the cube isn't trying to confuse you?" "No. It's showing me everything. All the old systems and hidden paths. If I understand this correctly, it could help rebuild outposts across the frontier. Or, if someone uses it the wrong way, it could give them too much control over Dodge City. Eli nodded slowly. And that's why we need caution. There are eyes everywhere here. Not everyone in this city wants changes. Lyra looked up at him. I don't know who to trust. You trust your instincts, Eli said softly, and you trust the people who have proven themselves. That's all you can do. The next morning they ventured back into the streets. Dodge City was alive with morning activity, floating carts delivering goods, drones buzzing in tidy patterns, and people moving between markets and workshops. Eli led Lyra through quieter paths, careful to avoid the crowds. They reached a small plaza where a group of engineers worked on repairing an abandoned station. Lyra's eyes lit up. This is perfect, she whispered. If I can access the control panels, I might be able to restore some of the old systems without anyone noticing. Eli scanned the area. Then let's make it quick. We don't want curious eyes. Working together, Lyra carefully traced the cube's projections with her fingers. Holographic lines connected to hidden circuits, showing pathways beneath the plaza that were invisible to anyone passing above. Eli assisted, holding tools, adjusting small levers, and clearing minor debris so Lyra could work. Hours passed, and progress was slow but steady. The cube guided her, revealing connections between abandoned stations and current city infrastructure. Slowly, the old systems began to hum, lights flickering to life, and sensors quietly reactivating. Lyra's heart raced. She realized this technology could provide water, energy, and resources to neglected outposts far beyond Dodge City. But as she activated the final panel, a faint flicker appeared on the wall. A hovering drone that had been following them. Lyra froze. Eli stepped in front of her, calm but alert. They're watching, he said. Lyra frowned. I thought we were careful. Eli pointed to a nearby shadow. Not everyone is visible. Some drones are designed to blend in. But there's a way to handle this, quietly. He pulled a small device from his coat. A compact signal disruptor. With a few adjustments, he created a gentle pulse that redirected the drone's sensors away from their location. The drone drifted silently past them, unaware of the work they had done. Lyra exhaled. That was too close. Eli nodded. The city has eyes everywhere, but cleverness and patience can keep you safe. Once the drone passed, Lyra returned to her work. Finally, the cube glowed brighter than ever, projecting a holographic map of the frontier with active lines connecting Dodge City to distant settlements. She smiled. It's done. The paths are open. Outposts can be rebuilt. Resources can reach those who need them. Ellie looked at the map, impressed. You've done something good here, more than most people ever realize. Lyra's fingers lingered over the glowing lines. But it's only possible if we keep it safe. If the wrong person finds this, it could change everything. Then we protect it. Together. That evening they returned to Starlight Haven. The city hummed quietly under the stars, but something felt different. People moved a little more freely, the air seemed lighter, and the distant hum of drones felt less intrusive. Lyra realized that even small acts of care and attention could ripple through the city, creating subtle change. As they rested, Eli shared a quiet thought. You know, Lyra, you remind me why I stay on the frontier. Not for the isolation, or the peace, or the overbreads, but for moments like this. Moments where something meaningful can happen, if you're willing to notice it. Lyra looked at him, surprised. I thought you liked the quiet.
I do, but the quiet teaches you things.
It teaches you patience, observation, and care. And those things, they make the world better, in ways big and small. Lyra thought of the cube, the hidden stations, and the people who would benefit from the systems she had restored. I get it now, she said softly. It's not just about reaching Dodge City. It's about what you do once you're here, how you use what you discover. Eli nodded. And you've already done more than you realize. The next day they walked to the edge of the city, overlooking a wide valley that stretched toward the frontier. Hovercrafts moved along distant roads, and settlements dotted the plains, faintly glowing in the morning light. Lyra held the cube carefully. I'm going to send the maps and coordinates to the outposts, she said. It will take time, but they'll have the resources they need. And you'll do it wisely. That's what matters. They paused, watching the horizon. Lyra realized something important. She didn't have to face Dodge City alone. With Eli's guidance and the quiet knowledge of the frontier, she could navigate the city, protect the secrets, and still make a difference. Thank you, she said softly. For everything. I wouldn't have managed this without you. Eli shrugged, a small smile on his face. You would have, but it's easier with company. And sometimes company makes all the difference. Lyra laughed lightly, the tension of the past days lifting. I think I understand now. The frontier and the city, they're not that different. Both need attention, care, and respect. Eli nodded. You've got it, and you've got the skill to make it better. As they prepared to leave Dodge City, they made one last stop at the plaza where Lyra had reactivated the abandoned systems. Small lights blinked softly, indicating water and energy flows reaching outposts across the frontier. A quiet satisfaction filled the air. Even the city seemed to pause, as if acknowledging their work. Lyra glanced at Eli. I'll head to the outpost next. But will you stay on the frontier? He smiled faintly. I'll stay, but I'll always watch the planes. And sometimes I might just check on Dodge City from a distance. Lyra nodded. Then we'll meet again, somewhere between the city and the frontier. They mounted Jasper, leaving the city behind. The twin suns rose again, casting warm light across the plains. The wind whispered softly, carrying dust and scents of the distant desert. Lyra felt hope rising inside her. The journey ahead was long, but she was no longer alone. As they rode, the cube's glow reflected on her face. It reminded her that discovery and kindness could travel far, bridging the gap between quiet plains and bustling cities. Every small choice, every careful step, could ripple outward, shaping a better world. The frontier stretched endlessly ahead, and Dodge City lay behind, alive with secrets and stories. Together, Eli and Lyra moved forward, guided by knowledge, trust, and quiet courage. The journey was not over, but for the first time, Lyra felt ready for whatever lay ahead. And in the calm of the plains, with Jasper's steady hum beneath them, the world felt wide, alive, and full of possibility.